Hey guys, and welcome to Pixel Cherry Ninja's channel. In this video we're going to be talking about some favorite games of mine that are single screen arcade games. I was going to go with single screen platformers, but I realized not all of the games I'm going to show are platformers. Now there's one rule here: the entire level of the game, the stage you're currently doing, needs to be on one stage, so you can't scroll up, down, left or right. And there are lots and lots of games like this. I've chosen 10 from my era of arcade gaming. I've used different hardware to play them, whether I've played them on my PC via Fightcade or looked at some Fightcade replays which uses FBNeo. I've also used FPGA devices such as the MiSTer and the Analogue Pocket. You can play these in a variety of ways, whether it's via FPGA, original hardware if you can find an arcade machine, or just software emulation. Definitely let me know which ones your favorites are. If I've missed them out in there, well, I would have missed some out in here because I've only done 10. There were some games that are out before I kind of started getting to the arcade, stuff like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, even stuff like the Fairyland story. I'm looking at the ones that I played in the arcade. But yeah, let's begin. And this list isn't in any order. I find it difficult to make top 10s because it's hard to, make a number 10 and what is my favorite. So these are just 10 awesome games that I think you guys should try out. So let's start with the first one, which is Bobble. You can't say the word arcade, and when I get a nostalgic picture in my head, different arcade games are on rotation, and one of them is Bobble. When I was very young and I started getting to the arcade by myself, this was one of the games that was very, very popular. In fact, I remember one guy that could once he see it, he was amazing at the game, and as a kid I used to spend time watching him, and then I started playing it as well. So this was released by Taito in 1986, originally in the arcades, and that's what we're looking at here, arcade games, but this came out for most consoles as well as home computers. You control two dragons, you can play it 1 or 2 players. One is called Bub, the other is called Bob. There's 100 levels with increasing difficulty, which is normal, right? As you progress, the game gets more difficult. There's power-ups that you can collect which enhance your abilities like faster bubbles and longer range. The main mechanic in this game is you fire out the bubbles, you capture the enemies in the bubbles, and you pop those bubbles to destroy the enemies that later turn into fruits and different items that you can collect. The aim of the game is Bub and Bob's girlfriends have been captured by the evil villain Baron von Blubber, and you want to go out and rescue them. The soundtrack for this game is fantastic. In fact, the main arcade tune I rocked as a ringtone for my phone for multiple years. As well as the original game, this spawned multiple sequels and spin-offs, stuff like Rainbow Islands, the Puzzle Bobble series. We'll even have a look at one of the sequels in this video later on. It was great to play individually, and it was great to play 2 players as well. Here's a little bit of a fun fact. Bobble introduced the true ending concept. Players must complete the game in 2-player mode to unlock the real ending. So that's Bobble, try it out. The next game we are having a look at is a game called Bang Bang Busters. Almost sounds like an adult movie, but I can tell you nothing is further away. This was developed by the Visco Corporation, and it was originally developed in the 90s. This is a Neo Geo game, AES and MVS, and apparently it was later ported to the Dreamcast and modern consoles. But you know what? Neo Geo games are arcade games because people had a Neo Geo, but there were plenty of arcade machines when I was growing up with Neo Geo games in there. The gameplay of this is an action platformer with some puzzle elements. Players control 1 or 2 characters named Lazy and Reflex. The goal is to navigate through the levels, defeat enemies and solve puzzles. You can play 1-player or 2-player cooperative play, and that's what's really good about a lot of these single screen games is it was 2-player co-op. You collect items to progress and enhance your gameplay and enhance your power. There's a variety of quirky, colourful foes requiring strategic approaches to defeat. The visual style is very cartoonish and vibrant. Graphics typical of 1990s arcade games, they almost feel like a 2D cartoon. The objective of the game is overcome various levels, destroy the evil plans and complete the adventure. And a fun fact about this game, the game was shelved for nearly 2 decades before being rediscovered and officially released, making it a rare and sought after title for Neo Geo collectors. The next game on this list is Snow Brothers, and this is a game I played in the arcade and I spent a lot of my lunch money on there. In fact, I still remember sneaking out of school to go to a chip shop near our school where they had the arcade machine, and me and my buddy Chris used to play it there. This was developed by Toplan and released in 1990. You fire like a projectile attack at your enemies, which turns them into snowballs. You roll those snowballs to hit other enemies. If you can clear the entire level by bouncing one enemy and destroying all other enemies, you get like this currency that comes down that really gives you a lot of points. The game consists of 50 levels and you get a variety of enemies as you progress through the game. Every 10 levels you get a boss, and I really like the first boss. It reminds me of a giant gremlin. Remember that movie, Don't Feed It After Midnight, and don't apply water to the gremlin. Really does look like that. This was released for different home consoles and computers. I can't remember the Mega Drive version. I think that's worth a lot of money now, but the NES version was known to have additional levels, so it was a standout home port. I also have to give a special mention to a recent version that was released for the Nintendo Switch. It might also be released on like different formats like Steam, but I have it for the Switch, and it isn't just a remake. It has a graphical overhaul. It has different modes in there where you unlock different enemies and you can actually control them. So that's definitely worth checking out as well. I think it's called Snow Brothers Remastered. But yeah, Snow Brothers, an arcade classic. Play this wherever you can play it. It is just so much fun. This one here is Nightmare in the Dark. This isn't something I actually played in the arcades. This is something that I discovered while browsing Final Burn Neo, an emulation list, and I was like, what is this game? I tried it and I was like, wow, this game is actually amazing. It was developed by AM Factory, released in the year 2000, and it was released for the Neo Geo MVS arcade system. I don't think it's out for anything else. That's the only way you can play it. It's a single screen platformer, very reminiscent of Bobble, but more so of Snow Brothers. In the game, you control a gravekeeper that's tasked with battling ghouls and monsters. So you remember in Snow Brothers, you make those big snowballs. In this one, you make fireballs. Your character fires out some fire out of a lantern, which when you get the enemies with them, they turn into a giant fireball that you flick around the level to inflict damage to enemies and bosses. You progress through 5 stages, each with a boss at the end of it. And the bosses get tough. You've got classic monsters in there like Frankenstein, who's a boss, but the normal enemies, you've got zombies, you've got skeletons, you've got ghosts. Pretty much any monster you can think of is in there. The visual style is very good. It's gothic, it's got a spooky atmosphere. It uses dark colors and the sprites are very detailed. And the objective of the game is protect the graveyard by eliminating all enemies and bosses. This game actually gained a cult following for its unique horror aesthetic and classic arcade gameplay. A fun fact here, despite its simple gameplay, the game's eerie visuals and atmosphere soundtrack set it apart, making it one of the few horror-themed arcade or single-screen arcade games of its time. We played a lot of arcade games back in the late 80s and the early 90s. So this is a game called Tumble Pop. It's developed by Data East and it was released in 1991. Now I did actually play this in the arcade, but this was in a massive arcade. It had lots and lots of games there, and we ended up playing like a lot of Street Fighter there and a lot of other kind of versus games. I played this a couple of times and I did like it. The reason that I've put this in there, whenever we're talking about upcoming FPGA gaming cores for the MiSTer and the Analogue Pocket, people always say one of the games they'd love to see is this along with Snow Brothers. So I started checking it out again via software emulation, and yes guys, the game is just really good. Think Ghostbusters, right? It's a Ghostbusters single screen platformer action game. You've got a Hoover that sucks in ghosts and different monsters. You then dash those monsters out to kill other monsters. Makes complete sense from a gaming perspective. It has a diverse cast of enemies, including robots, monsters, and enemies that are themed with the locations. And you go around the world, you go to Egypt, Russia, as well as other locations. The visual style is very colorful and cartoony. Graphics are just very dynamic, or the animations are very dynamic. And I want to give a fun fact here. The Game Boy version, there was a Game Boy version of this game, and at the time the game had a level editor, so you could design your own levels, which was unheard of at the time the Game Boy version was released. I haven't actually checked it out myself. I just found that while researching this game on Google. So once I kind of do this video, I am going to check out the Game Boy version. But for the meantime, the arcade version is fantastic, and it's definitely a game everyone should try. Pang, a game developed by the Mitchell Corporation and released in 1989. Now guys, initially my buddy Chris told me about this game and he was like, there's a game, you pop bubbles, it's really good in the arcade. And I looked at it and I thought, you know what, I don't like this game, it just looks lame. And he was like, try it. I'll pay for your credit, you try this game. And as soon as I tried it, I could see why everyone loved this game. This was a very popular game in the arcade, and as soon as you give this a go, it's very, very addictive. What you do? Well, there's a big bubble flying around, or big bubbles flying around and bouncing around. You hit them with your gun. There's different power-ups in there. You've got a harpoon, you've got a double harpoon, you've got this harpoon that goes up on the wall and sticks there. That was the worst weapon, I hated it. But then you had like a shotgun that fired out lots and lots of bullets. You had like a dynamite, and sometimes you wanted to avoid the dynamite because it popped all the bubbles and turned them into the tiniest bubbles, and sometimes you just had too many on the screen at once. Now this is a game I only liked playing in one player mode. A lot of people played it in 2 players, but I just found it very, very confusing when you were playing it 2 players. Let me know how you enjoyed playing this game, but for me, I didn't like the 2-player mode in this, but that's maybe more of a me thing, because in the arcade, a lot of people did play it 2 players and they did enjoy it. But this game was very, very much liked at the time because it was very, very simple. If you brought your friend to the arcade that never used to go to the arcade, or if you brought like a girlfriend to the arcade that wasn't used to playing video games, sorry guys, back then when this was current, honestly, you didn't get a lot of girls in gaming venues. I know that the dynamics have changed these days, but it was a simple game to play. It was simple, fun, addictive, and it got hard fast. As soon as you got to like 3-4 levels in, it got hard. And with Pang, it's the original, once you pop, you can't stop. Doka Don. This is something that I played on my PC Engine, and I have to bring the arcade version in here because it really is a good game, and I feel like this is one of the ones not many people know about. If you played this in the arcade, if you played this on your PC Engine, it was also out for the NES. Do let me know. Now, I always felt this had something to do with Bobble. I'm not sure if it's in the Bobble universe, apart from the fact that it's developed by Taito and it was released a few years later in 1989. It's an action platformer, single screen levels, just like all the games we're looking at in here. You are armed with like a hammer, or should I call it a mallet. With those mallets, you bash them in the enemies' heads, and you pick those enemies up with your mallet and you chuck them at other enemies. You play a couple of dwarves in here called Bob and Jim, and they really remind me of those garden gnomes. You know, when you're driving past someone's house and they've got a really nice front garden and they've got a garden gnome sitting there holding a fishing rod by like a little make-do pond. That's the kind of character you play. You wanna destroy every enemy, right? That's the kind of focus of most of these games. But what you want to do is you want to rescue the kidnapped princess and restore peace to the kingdom. A typical story. What's interesting and a fun fact here is the NES version introduced additional story elements and expanded the gameplay, as well as including secret levels and hidden items. So I haven't tried the NES version out. The PC Engine was the go-to version for me, but I feel this is a hidden gem. I feel like not many people know about this game. If you did know about it, let me know, but if not, try this game out. I can testify for the PC Engine version and the arcade version. Both are really good, and the NES version is something that I need to try. That time has come. What do I mean by that? Well, do you remember at the beginning of this video, the first game we looked at was Bobble, and I said there have been many sequels to Bobble, and we'll have a look at one of them in this video. That time has come. Bobble Symphony, also known as Bobble 2. This was also developed by Taito, released in 1994, and this is on the Taito F3 system. It was also ported to the Sega Saturn as well as some other systems, but it's the Saturn version that I have played the most. Guys, this is a lot of fun. You control 4 dragons in here, so just not Bob and Bob, but you've also got like 2 female characters in there as well. The goal, as usual, trap enemies in bubbles and pop them to clear levels. What's different about this? It introduces branching paths. So at the end of certain levels, you get different doorways and you can choose what route you want to go through. There's power-ups in this, including like elemental power-ups. You get fire, thunder, wind, etc. It includes multiple endings depending on player choices and performance and the routes that were selected. Enemies. Now there is a mix of classic Bobble enemies as well as new enemies. The visual style of this game is updated, vibrant graphics, a bit more polished. It has its own unique look. I personally feel Bobble has a great look, and so does this. Now the soundtrack for this, it's got some original tracks, it's got remixed tracks from Bobble as well as like some other games. But guys, like, to be completely honest, the worst thing about this is the more I play this game, the less I kind of like the the kind of soundtrack this has. Now, it's still a great game, I still like it, but the soundtrack, like Bobble in comparison, I can listen to that soundtrack all day long. This one here, after a while it gets a bit repetitive and I found myself not enjoying it as much. Either way, the game's fantastic. It doesn't stop me from playing and enjoying the game even now. Now here's a little fun fact about this. Bubble's Symphony includes references to other Taito games such as Rainbow Islands and Darius, with special theme stages and music. Anyway, definitely check this out. This is a gem from Jalico, released in 1990. Let me present to you guys Rodland. Rodland is fantastic, and a fun fact, let's start with a fun fact, very, very unique. This game doesn't have a jump button, but instead you build ladders. So you've got two buttons, one button fires your magic wand, which grabs the enemies, then you slam them left and right, and then yeah, that's how you kind of destroy the enemies. But instead of jumping, the other button builds a ladder, an up ladder or a down ladder. So if you want to go somewhere high, you build it up, and instead of jumping, you can build the ladder up in the air and kind of like float down somewhere further down. It has single player mode as well as a two-player mode, and guys, this game is just a lot of fun. And what's a lot of fun about this as well, there's different plants on the levels. Now if you collect all those plants, you go into like this different game mode where everything just kind of changes. Now this has secret endings, secret levels in there. I haven't found most of them, but I have been told they exist. I have to give an honorable mention to the Amiga version of this game. It is really, really good. It was also released for the NES and the Atari ST, but I haven't actually played those versions. The visual style is lovely, bright, colorful graphics with a cute fantasy themed design. You fight different creatures in there which are just as cute, like slimes, ghosts, and you come across larger bosses as well. The objective of the game is rescue the sister's kidnapped mother from a mysterious tower, and the attract mode for this game just looks really, really good. It's well worth trying, whether you play the arcade version or even try it the Amiga version. This game is just amazing. ZuPaPa, you heard right, this game is called ZuPaPa, and this isn't again something I played in the arcade, but I discovered later via software emulation, and guys, it is a gem of a game. The developer behind this game is someone called Face, not someone that I'm familiar with. Released in 2001, well, it was actually developed in 1994, but officially released for the Neo Geo in 2001. It's the Neo Geo MVS arcade game. It's a single screen action platformer like everything we featured here, and it's very reminiscent of classics such as Bobble and Snow Brothers. I feel like I'm using that to compare all the other games in this video. The players control a hero called ZuPaPa, who defeats enemies by throwing small companions called Zoots to stun foes and then finishing them off. That's right, you throw little companions, you literally throw your babies at them, and guys, it really is fun. It's a very, very unique game. It features power-ups such as increased speed and stronger attacks, just like games of this nature. Levels are colourful, fast-paced and packed with enemies to defeat. There's a variety of different enemies in there and larger bosses at the end of the stages. The visual style is very bright, very good looking, very cartoonish, and lively animations with vibrant stages. The objective: save ZuPaPa's friends and defeat the evil forces threatening their world. A fun fact here, guys, to finish up on, ZuPaPa was one of the last games released for the Neo Geo system, making it a nostalgic gem for fans of the platform. So with the 10th game there, guys, this brings us to the end of this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then a subscription and a like is always super duper appreciated. Do definitely let me know what your favorite single screen arcade games are. They don't need to be platformers, they can be anything. The only restriction is the whole gameplay area needs to be in a single screen. It doesn't scroll anywhere. I know there's more out there. There's some before my time, there's some after my time, but definitely let me know what your gems are and I will check those out. Anyway, guys, be awesome to one another. This is Pixel Cherry Ninja out.